Hey everybody, my name is Scott Newhouse. I'm a certified financial planner. Today I want to talk about what's going on with inflation, the Federal Reserve, the stock market, and what should we be doing with our personal finances next. So let's jump into it. So far in 2022, it has been a wild ride in the stock market. Basically, the first 6 months of the year, we were going straight down, and I think we were down around 20-ish%. Then we recovered half of those gains over the next 6 or 8 weeks or so, and then after that, we actually fell back down again to lower lows than what we had in the earlier part of the summer. And as of today, the S&P 500 largest companies inside the US, it's down around 21.5%. So what in the world is going on? In today's video podcast, I'm going to talk about the factors that I see affecting the economy and the stock market overall, and then I'm going to give you some action items at the end of this episode. Please note, none of this, not a single word of this, is a prediction about what's going to happen next, as I have no idea. The pundits on CNBC have no idea. Your uncle has no idea, and it is foolish to play that short-term prediction game because you can't do that reliably over time. You might get once in a decade, but you're not going to do it every single year. So over the last few years, as you know, we have seen extremely high inflation driven by a number of factors. There's the pandemic, which slowed down production of goods. We had the influx of money by the government via the stimulus bills that we've had. We've had high wages from employers who had to pay their employees more money because those employees had more leverage in negotiations. And there's other factors in addition to those three ones that I just mentioned there. But the main point here is that inflation's been really high over the last 2 years, and that's been something that the Federal Reserve Chairman, Jay Powell, has stated is a big concern to him. And so he wants to rise interest rates. He wants to increase interest rates over time to help slow down spending. And over the last couple months, we've seen Jay Powell and the Federal Reserve increase interest rates, and that has sent a shock to the stock market, and that's precipitated this most recent decline of 8 to 10% that we've had in the last couple months. Now, his philosophy on this is similar to how when gas prices spiked earlier this summer, May and June and July, people simply drove less. There's data showing that. When gas prices went through the roof, especially in those early summer months, people hit the road less, they took less trips, they chose to stay home, and they tried public transportation and other means of transportation where they didn't have to spend as much on gas. So when prices get too high, people are simply going to stop spending money. That in turn helped lower gas prices, along with, of course, the government using some of our oil reserves to help get us some extra oil. Now, that's what Jay Powell, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, is trying to do on a broader view with the economy. He's trying to make interest rates higher so that people will stop spending as much money, so that companies will hire less, some companies will stop hiring completely, and other companies, honestly, are going to have to lay off people. In his own words, when he's going to rise interest rates and the federal chair is going to rise interest rates, it is going to hurt the economy. His own words, and in his own words, he has said that it will be quote unquote painful. There will be pain, and that's what Jay Powell has said. So his general hope is that as people spend less money, as companies are hiring less, and that's going to bring down inflation, which has been stuck in the high single digits for well over a year. Now, Jay Powell's goal is to reduce inflation down to 2%. Last numbers I saw were over 8%, and it's been a little bit higher than that in earlier parts of 2022. But to get inflation down to that 2% goal, we're going to need to see a serious decrease in spending, which is where rising interest rates come into play, and it's just going to make getting loans and spending money that much more unaffordable, and people are not going to be willing to do it. And so it's going to be a slowdown in the economy, and that's the game plan. That's the plan from the Federal Reserve and from Jay Powell, the chairman. So the question that we have to ask ourselves is what's going to happen next? And there, again, no predictions, but there's two broad thoughts about what's going to happen next. Are we going to have a soft landing, or are we going to have a hard landing? And those are the terms that you might see in newspapers and in other media sources. So if In other words, will we get a minor, very minor economic contraction along with some minor layoffs, which we've already seen, as well as a small increase in unemployment? Unemployment's pretty low right now. Obviously, that is preferable, and that's what people mean when they say that they expect or hope for a soft landing. However, that is not assured. Many people think that the interest rates that Jay Powell's leading will cause an economic recession if we are not already in a recession. That will mean drastically decreased economic growth, which will mean higher unemployment, a lot of pain for people who are going to be laid off. Loans will become much more expensive, and we've already seen this with mortgages and car loans. Credit card interest rates are going to go up a lot, and they've already started to do that, which means that people who are not able to pay off the balance on their credit cards, they're going to be disproportionately hurt because those 18% interest rates are going to go up into the 20% plus. And so people who are not able to pay their bills because they've been laid off, it's really going to hurt them. And then worst case scenario, we go into a lengthy and full-blown recession. That's the hard landing scenario that other economists and people talk about. So soft landing, hard landing, neither scenario is pretty, but that's basically what we're looking at this point in time. As a result, the stock market has responded to these negative scenarios, and they're both negative, by pulling money out of the stock market and depressing prices further. So with all that said, we're down around 21% year to date, and we absolutely could go lower. It's definitely a possibility. It is important to note, though, that there's already a lot of bad news already baked into the current prices of the stock market. Now, lastly, before we wrap up and we get to these action steps, as I should say, not everyone is in love with Jay Powell's strategy. There's some people who think that he was basically promoting economic stimulus last year in 2021 in an already overheated economy, and in less than a year of supporting those stimulus measures, now he's essentially trying to lead us to a recession by rising interest rates so dramatically and so quickly. In other words, it's a drastic and abrupt change in course, and it doesn't lead to a lot of confidence for some of these critics when his actions have changed so much so quickly. That said, unless he resigns, he's the person that we've got in charge, and the vision that he wants is frankly, it's going to be the one that's going to be implemented. Now, I want to make sure that this is an actionable episode for all of you. So what should we do now? I've got 4 things for you to consider. Number 1, if you've got cash above your emergency fund, I think you need to think about putting it to work on some type of monthly basis. If you want to put it all in while the market's down 21%, i.e. right now, that really could be a good strategy, but it can also make a lot of sense for you to put your extra money above your emergency fund in over a period of 3 to 6 months until we get more certainty about how bad things will be in the short term. Because if we let's say we put it in over 6 months, and then things get worse. Instead of being down 21, we go to 25 down, then we go to 30 down, 35% down. That absolutely could happen. I have no idea. But if we spread it out over 6 months, then we can kind of dollar cost average into those lows. So I think that could be something that you and your spouse definitely need to think about in terms of how we use that extra cash. Second action item I got for us is, please, unless you desperately, and I mean desperately, need the money in your investment accounts, please hold on and do not sell. Now that said, third action point, and I just got to be realistic with you, this could be a longer bear market than normal. No one knows, but we've basically been in a downward slumping market since January of this year. And what are we in? We're in October. It's October 6th. So it could go on longer than any of us want. So we need to be realistic about that. But if you are already retired, I want you to make a plan about where you're going to take money from if you absolutely need it. Do you have cash on the sidelines? Maybe you use that instead of depleting your investment portfolio right now. Then when we get our rebound, then you can start using your investment portfolio again. Another thing to think about is there anything in your portfolio that is not down as much as the other holdings that you have? i.e., are you diversified enough where everything is not correlated exactly the same? If so, I think you need to think about using those investments that are doing, better than the other ones to generate income while you wait for those other holdings to recover. You also have to consider the tax consequences of taking investments from certain type of investment accounts, as that plays a really important role in your financial picture. So you got to make sure the taxes are straight on that. My last action item for us: if you're 5+ years away from retirement, be perfectly honest with you, this is good news to you. And you got to do what you need to be able to sock away some extra money right now when we're down 20% plus. If that means cutting some expenses that are not necessary, I think you really have to consider it. I personally am finding ways to cut my own budget so I can put a little extra money into the stock market right now. Now, friends, that is all I have for today. Please stay strong. We will absolutely get through this. If you have any questions, comments, need anything from me, put it in the comments down below or shoot me an email on my website, forthrightfinances.com. All right. Hope you have a great day. See you next time. Bye.